Whenever we try to help someone, especially a kid, there's this tension that we almost always miss. We see a problem, right? We want to fix it, so we set a goal. But what happens when our goal and their goal are on completely different planets? Well, that's what we're talking about today, the goal-setting gap.
It seems like such an easy question, doesn't it? I mean, of course it's the adults, the teachers, the social workers. We're the ones who are supposed to know what's best. But, and this is a big but, just assuming we know best can be the one thing that separates actually helping from making things a whole lot worse.
And right here, the disconnect is just, wow, it's so clear. On one side, you have the professional goal. It's about safety, it's about following the rules. But on the other side, a child's entire world, their deepest, most basic need. A kid who's been removed from their home for safety reasons doesn't see the regulations. They just feel this massive gaping hole where their family used to be. This right here is the goal-setting gap.
Okay, so to really see how this plays out in the real world, let's go visit an elementary school. We're going to step inside a social skills group for a few boys who've been labeled problem students.
So, here's the setup. You've got a small group of young boys, and their teachers have flagged them as being disruptive. Now, they didn't sign up for this group, they've been sent. So from the school's point of view, the goal is pretty straightforward. Fix the behavior so the rest of the class can get back to learning. Simple, right?
But this is where it gets interesting. The social worker in charge did something totally game-changing. Instead of kicking things off with a lecture about rules, she just asked them a question. She turned it right back on them. Why do you guys think you're here? It's so simple, but with that one question, the entire power dynamic in that room just shifted.
And the answers start rolling in, and you can start to see their side of the story. For this kid, the problem isn't him, it's his teacher. The whole issue is a relationship problem, in his mind.
Then you get this from another boy. And, there's some self-awareness here. He kind of gets that his actions play a role. But that word sometimes, that word is doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it? It tells you he doesn't see this as who he is, just something that happens now and then.
And then this. This one just stops you cold. All of a sudden, disruptive behavior means something completely different. This isn't just a kid who can't sit still anymore. This is a kid who is trying to process a serious trauma, whose world outside the classroom feels dangerous.
And this is the light bulb moment. Once the social worker actually listened, the official reason they were all in that room, this bad behavior, turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg. The behavior wasn't the problem, it was a symptom. It was a signal of something much deeper that the school's goal had completely overlooked.
And this is the real goal. Later, when the boy who saw the shooting was asked what he wanted, he didn't say, "I want to get a gold star in class." He said, "I want my family to be safe." His mind wasn't on classroom rules, it was on basic survival. How can we possibly expect a child to focus on math problems when their brain is screaming for safety?
So okay, listening is step one. Absolutely critical. But then what? What do you do with that information? How in the world do you build a bridge from "you need to behave in class" all the way over to "I need my family to be safe"? Well, the answer is all about working together.
This leads us to this really important idea called goal negotiation. Now, I know it sounds a little corporate, a little formal, right? But all it really means is partnership. It's the process of saying, okay, I hear you and I hear what you want. I also have a goal we need to meet. So how can we work together to find a way that gets us both what we need? It's all about respecting their story as the true starting point.
And you can really break this down into 4 simple steps. First, you just acknowledge their reality. You hear, "My teacher doesn't like me," and you meet it with, "Okay, tell me more," not with judgment. Then, you clearly explain why you're there. And this third step is the magic one. You find the shared target. What do you both want? And finally, you map out how to get there, but you do it together.
So let's bring this back to our school group. What was their shared target? It was actually pretty simple. The teachers wanted the boys to be in the classroom, learning. And when the boys were asked, they wanted to stay in the classroom too. Nobody wanted to be sent to the principal's office. And boom, that's it. That's your common ground. That's where you start building.
This idea is so powerful. But what happens when the issue isn't a hidden trauma, but a person's basic, fundamental need for control over their own life? For that, let's look at the story of Robertina, a 17-year-old who shows us exactly what happens when someone's greatest strength gets mistaken for their biggest problem.
Just look at these words from her official file. Defiant, uncooperative, hostile. I mean, these labels paint a picture of a teenager who's almost impossible to work with, right? They define her entirely by how much she pushes back against the system.
But now, let's hear from Robertina herself. I don't like being told what to do. I know my own mind. Listen to that again. She's not just saying she wants to cause trouble. She is making a powerful statement about wanting to be in control of her own life. This isn't defiance for the sake of it. This is a young woman fighting for her own identity.
And you can see the two paths so clearly here. The old way was all about trying to force her to comply. The method was punishment, and the result was just an endless cycle of conflict. But the new approach? It started with understanding her real goal, independence. The method shifted to empathy, and suddenly, they started making progress. They started building trust.
So get this, the very thing that everyone had labeled as her biggest problem, her defiance, was actually her greatest strength. It was a fierce, powerful drive for autonomy. And the second the people around her stopped fighting against that drive and started working with it, that's when she could finally start to succeed on her own terms.
All right, so when we step back and look at these stories, what are the big lessons here? What are the really important things we can take away and use in our own lives anytime we're in a position to help somebody?
Okay, so here's the bottom line. First, every single behavior you see is just one page in a much, much bigger book. You can't understand the story from just one page. Second, real help starts with listening, not with telling people what to do. It's all about finding that common ground. And as Robertina's story showed us so powerfully, empowering someone's own drive to be independent is way more effective than just demanding they comply. At the end of the day, helping isn't about giving a prescription. It's about building a partnership.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time you step in to help, whether it's a child, a coworker, a friend, anyone, just pause for a second. Before you jump in with the perfect solution, before you lay out the goals, ask yourself, whose story am I going to listen to first?